Well, we have a treat for you right now. This is Kathy Weiss, who is the executive director of My Father's House. We're going to take a few minutes and we're going to talk to her about My Father's House and the ministry, and also the correlation between Heart for the Mission Offering and My Father's House. So let's go ahead and start off. Kathy, can you let us know a bit about what is My Father's House?
So my father's house is at the very basis about housing homeless families, but it doesn't just stop there, because besides housing them physically, we also have a program that helps them learn how to get a job, learn how to keep a job, and it also helps them get housing and into housing. But the key here is that we don't do anything for them that they can do for themselves. So we offer classes that are mandatory and other kinds of programs like a savings program and um, a mentoring program, as well as case management, where they are actually having time where they're meeting with somebody one-on-one every single week in order to meet you might have. And their goals are all short term. We're not trying to plan long-term goals. We're trying to get them to set short-term goals that they can accomplish.
Yeah, I appreciate, with most of the ministries for the Heart for the Mission Offering that we're doing, it is to get people to the next step for them. It's not just there's a million organizations. Brad Ketch at the CDC was saying this earlier. There's a
Yeah.
million organizations that will get socks on people's feet that don't
Yeah.
have socks. But there are very few organizations in the area that are going to teach life skills and give people the opportunity to be successful,
Right.
either before they need socks or after they've been given socks. That's
Right.
about the long term, and I love that about My Father's House. Am I reading that right about what your
Yeah.
heart is? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
That's
uh,
very true.
yeah. So can you tell me a bit about your story when it comes to where did My Father's House come from?
Well, it's a really a homegrown kind of story, because I was on staff at East Hill Church as one of the children's pastors, and just saw a lot of homelessness, and especially single moms trying to just get from one place to another, not being able to keep a job, and I saw a lot of individuals that also were didn't have a clue. They grew up on um, government assistance, and they just really know that there was any other way to grow up and live life. And so that kind of prompted Ray Morris, a coworker, and I to say, we need to do something about this. And so we talked to Pastor Ted, and mind you, this was 21 years ago. So talked to Pastor Ted, and he was like, well, do something about it then. And we're like, okay. And it took a lot of time, but my father's house was birthed out of East Hill Church. And, it's always been home. It's always where you go back to home, no matter what you do, where you have to go, or what you do for ministry. You always have that home port, that home place. And East Hill has been that for me. So I do appreciate how supportive East Hill has been over the years. Started off in a little tiny duplex, and we had 5 families that very first week that we opened up, and we grew from there, and we raised money and built our home that we have now, which holds 28 families. And in 2015 we added some transitional housing to that, and that transitional housing holds another 13 families. So we are right at the 41 families that we help at a time, and they all have the same kind of rules. We're drug and alcohol free. We're not government funded. We have educational classes that are required, as well as a very hardcore savings program, and of course case management, where they get to meet with that person every single week.
That's great. That's amazing. And can you tell us a bit about once someone has gone through the program and the classes, what does the step out of My Father's House look like? What does that transition into their next step in life look like?
Well, it used to be that our program was just 4 months, and people would transition out of My Father's House after 4 months. However, it became very difficult to find housing. And so our 4-month program turned into a 6-month program. So after the families take all the classes, and it takes them 6 months to get through all the classes, they're setting goals for themselves, they're meeting these goals, they're getting jobs, and then the day comes when, hey, they found a place to live and they're going to be moving out. And when they get to that point, there's a lot of assistance. We help them furnish their home if they need it. They take all the things that they've received at My Father's House from our Adopt a Room program with them. And we try to keep in contact with them twice a year, once at Christmas and once in the summer after they leave the shelter, just to see how they're doing. Because just because they have jobs and housing doesn't mean they're not struggling. And so we want to make sure that we are being as supportive as we need to be. And so every year that goes by, we have more and more people that we are continuing to minister to and love on. Once they're family, they're always family. And then you have that 25% that kind of bails on the program. They don't need you. They're good. They can do what they need to do. And I would say probably about 10% of those come back and say, I should have never left. I need to finish the program. Please let me come back and do that. And like God, because He's a God of second chances, we are too. So we take them back in, we love on them, and we give them another chance to complete the program and be successful.
How has COVID complicated the work you guys do there? Has it had much of an effect? What does that look like?
Well, I think the biggest effect that COVID has had on us is financial. Giving kind of came to a screeching halt for a few months there, and it was difficult. We had a lot prepared. We always prepare financially for the future. We teach our residents the same thing. So we weren't completely devastated. We haven't seen as many homeless families simply because nobody's getting evicted because they don't have to pay their rent. So families, when they realize that they haven't paid rent for 10 months, 9 or 10 months, come to the end of December, I think we're going to have a huge onslaught of people looking for help and for assistance. That doesn't say that we haven't been taking in families. The first couple of months, we kind of backed up a little bit, and we went down to a skeleton crew, and we were very cautious. And then we're like, okay, we can do this. We can continue to do our classes. We can continue to be effective. So even though we didn't take any new residents in, we still were moving residents out. So that was really great. And then the forest fires hit, of course, and we haven't been able to do any fundraising other than online, which isn't quite as good as regular fundraising. And we ended up having one of our sprinklers go off in our third floor unit and flooded 9 apartments and a couple other rooms too, including part of the children's center and our boardroom and our mechanical room, fried our phone system. So there was, thankfully, and praise God, we had insurance, but there are always those things that you have to deal with, and you don't realize it takes so much time to get through a crisis like that. So we're used to dealing with personal crisis, that people's lives, but when it comes to a building crisis, we're all kind of looking at each other going, oh no, what do we do now? But we made it through that. We have almost all of our rooms back up and running again, but it's been quite the learning experience. And it just felt like between not having fundraisers and COVID and the forest fires and the flood, that we've just gone from crisis to crisis. And so it's been a very challenging year. But I will tell you one thing about challenging years that's really amazing is that there's spiritual growth. There is more opportunity to trust the Lord, to talk about His goodness and His mercies, and nothing like a good crisis to put people on their knees, and I love that. I love that part, because to me, the world may say that success is housing and jobs, and I don't think that's the whole picture. I think success is when we get to see people come to Jesus and realize that they have someone to lean on. And it's so amazing to get to pray with people and love on them in Jesus' name. Just like it's always been, we are His hands extended. And I love that about My Father's House and what we get to do there.
That's incredible. It's just incredible, Kathy. I don't think we're going to have to draw too much of a line for anybody who's been watching this, but just to make sure that it's very clear, for our Heart for the Mission offering, our vision is to address people's practical needs locally and globally, so that we can experience, so they can, excuse me, they can experience the love of God and
Right.
know that they're seen. In light of this vision, can you spell out a bit on how that connects with what My Father's House does? Can you connect that for us?
Yes, I mean, of course, you are motivated by the practical needs that people have, hunger, shelter. Um, and I know that that is very important, and we do that. We have, a clothing closet that they can shop in for free. We have a food pantry that they get to shop for free. They have housing that they don't have to pay for, and it gives them the well wraparound services that they need to physically survive. And then we go the step beyond that, and we do the spiritual and the practical spiritual, where you don't have to go through this alone, and you don't have to do this by yourself, but we're there to support you, love you, and help you. Education, if you need that. I'm so excited. We have a diploma program, and it is one of those practical things that you don't think about. If you've graduated from high school, you probably never thought about it again, where we have people that are 30 to 50 years old that never graduated high school, and it keeps them from getting better jobs. And so we do a diploma program that is quick and it's legal, of course, but it actually gets them from point A to point Z. And that program is just another one of those things that we have to help them in a practical way.
Let's say in theory that, which hopefully is not just a theory, that someone's watching this and inspired to not only give in a one-time gift through the Heart for the Mission offering, but let's say they want to partner with My Father's House. Can you tell us a bit about what partnership with My Father's House looks like?
Like most nonprofits, they need volunteers to survive. Volunteers are worth their weight in gold. And we couldn't run, for instance, our children's center without volunteers. And our children's center isn't just open when we have classes in the evening, but it's also open during the daytime, so people can go out and look for those jobs and go to job interviews and go for housing searches, meet with their case managers. All of that is very, very important. And so the Children's Center is probably always our greatest need, as it typically is at East Hill Church too, as I recall. So volunteers are great. We use them in our donation center. They shop with people. They can shop for groceries with them. They can shop for clothing with them. We have our receptionist desk is manned only by volunteers. And during COVID, this has been difficult because most of them are retired or elderly, and they are sticking at home like they should, which leaves us kind of at a little bit of a loss for having that extra help, because we have donations that come in and we have to have somebody at the reception desk to receive people when they come in the door. There's other things too, teaching classes. Sometimes people say, oh, I don't have any skills. Guess what? I had a gal, she came in and she taught a crockpot class to the residents. And I'm telling you what, a big hit that was, and everybody got a brand new crockpot. That was actually was a drive that one of the local clubs did here in Gresham. And so everybody got a brand new crockpot. And then through the donations, we'll find cookbooks and so forth, and we'll collect those and give them a cookbook to go along with their crockpot. So, I mean, you don't think those little things. Everyone thinks, well, I have to be, a biblical scholar. You don't have to be. Or I have to be this great parenting person that knows how to parent to teach a class. You don't have to be anything more than his hands extended. And if you have some practical advice to share, that's great. That's great. We love it.
I've heard that phrase before, his hands extended. I don't know where I've heard it from, but I've heard it before. And for the people that are watching this that aren't from East Hill for the last 15 years,
yeah,
that used to be our mission statement, his hands extended.
Yeah, the world. And I still use it because it's a good one.
It's a good phrase, absolutely. So on the practical side, if someone's interested in volunteering or interested in giving to My Father's House, how do they do that?
Well, it's really easy to give, because you can mail it in. You can go online to our website. or you can just bring a check by the building. It doesn't matter, or mail it. It's really easy. To volunteer is not as hard as people want to think it is. Every month we have a house tour, and the house tour is about 45 minutes to an hour long. You get to see where all the rooms are, what we do and everything, and you get to see one of our resident rooms as well. And so you go on that little tour, and then at the end of the tour, we do a volunteer training. And the volunteer training is short, but very, very important in that we want people to understand what we believe spiritually. So we do have a statement of faith that we want people to be aware of before they come in to volunteer. We want them to be respectful of that. We also have an opportunity to tell them about the different areas of getting involved. And it could be something that has to do with residents, or it could be something where it's an outside, like picking up our bread donation, or going and delivering something to former residents, or helping somebody move. There's so many ways to be involved. And our volunteer coordinator, Sarah, is wonderful, and she does the tour, and then she also does the training, and then we plug you right in right away.
That's awesome. That's incredible. So as we wrap up the interview, this has gone really great, Kathy. Thank you for taking time to being here and answering my questions. Is there anything that you kind of want to end with? Anything that you want to emphasize as we close up?
Well, I think that everyone always thinks that nonprofits just want you to give to them. And really and truly, my heart is that you give to what you feel moved to give to. And I don't care where you are, what you live, or if you give $1 or if you give $1,000, I don't care. I want you to give where your heart is and where you feel led to give. And every nonprofit is struggling, and some aren't, but it's so important to me that you just give. Just give wherever you feel led to give.
That's incredible. Thanks, Kathy, for taking time. This is quick, easy. You just nailed it.
Quick and easy.
Thank you for taking time, and thank you for sharing the heart. Yes, no problem. Thanks for your heart. I appreciate it.